are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will have hope in Him.
We will study the context of Lamentation chapter 3:23. Great is thy faithfulness. What do you normally, when you read this text, what is come to your mind? We sing that very favorite song, right? Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord, God our Father. There is no shadows of turning with thee. Okay, so what does it come to your mind when you read that song?
God is great.
God is great. God is faithful. And why normally we say God is faithful? What does lead us to say God is faithful?
We have hope in Him.
We have hope in Him. Okay?
His promises are always true.
His promises are true. How do you say that?
Because of His unending love.
Unending love. How do you say that?
Because He will never leave even if we leave. Like He will always be around us.
Okay, how can you say that? Is it just because you have read the Bible, or?
No, because despite any situation, He's always there to help us to come out of that negative situation or any wrong path that we have taken.
Okay.
There is something that comes within us that this is not right.
Okay.
So that's how we feel that He's always faithful. Despite us straying away, He still wants us to come back.
Okay. So are you trying to say that He is faithful even when we are unfaithful?
Yes.
Or He is faithful only when we are faithful?
He is faithful.
Or He is faithful because, many good things He has done in my life in the past. Or He has suddenly done today something great things. So many days I was trying to, earn money and buy a scooter. I didn't get it, but suddenly TLA gave me a motorbike. How great is thy faithfulness? Is that because God gave me something today and that's why He is faithful? Is it because, we have decided today to decentralize, or today we have, decided to have a 3% come forward and say, we will have a prayer committee now. Great is thy faithfulness. What is the context? Sometimes we do not understand the context of these texts, and we can have very narrow focus in our understanding. So what is going on actually? So understanding the context, that's more important. I may move a little bit on the side to show the PowerPoint. Understanding the genre. What kind of literature is this? Author is the prophet Jeremiah. Now we all know there are 5 books of major prophet: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Lamentation, and Daniel. There are 5 major prophets and the 12 minor prophets. Major prophets because they are voluminous. There are many chapters like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, but Lamentation doesn't have only 5 chapters, but still put under major prophet because it's written by Jeremiah. And he wrote 3 books. He wrote Kings, Lamentation, and Jeremiah. Those 3 books. Jeremiah was considered as a weeping prophet. Jeremiah was also considered as a prophet who would speak forthright. He will speak, tough words. He will warn people. Jeremiah is also considered as a prophet who was hated prophet, disliked, because he spoke always the truth. He was abandoned prophet. So he is the author. What kind of a style? It's a very unique style, literary style. See, in Lamentation you will see chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 4 is an acrostic. Acrostic poetry means every verse will start with consecutive alphabets, just like A. If the first sentence starts, it will start with A, second starts with B, third will start with C. It's called acrostic. Acrostic pattern of writing was a mnemonic device. Mnemonic device means a device through which you can remember the poetry for a longer time. But chapter 3 is much more unique. Why? Because it has all the 22 alphabets of Hebrew, and each alphabet is repeated 3 times. So verse 1, 2, 3 all start with Aleph, that is A. 4, 5, 6 all start with B, which in Hebrew call it Beit, and then C, D, like that. So 22 repeated 3 times, that's why there are 66 verses. It seems Jeremiah really wanted the people of God to remember this lamentation for a long, long time. And it was designed in such a way, in a very unique way, that it remains acrostic, and I use very powerful mnemonic device. It's a unique prophetic book, because most prophetic books are books is thus saith the Lord. Here is what God is saying. Hear, O Israel, thus saith the Lord. But Lamentation is a very unique book where God doesn't say anything. It's all human speaking. Human is speaking to another human. It's a very unique book that way. Third thing, its message is very combined, very confusing. It gives you a real picture of a human confusion. It has complaint, it has firm hope, at the same time it is imprecatory in nature. Imprecatory means you ask, for justice. You cry out for help, like Psalm, oh God, do not spare them, dash their children's hail on the stone, don't spare them, kill them also. So it's called imprecatory, asking justice from God, because this is how they are treated. They have killed my children, they have raped my women, so also do likewise to them. So praying for the enemies in such a way where you are asking for justice. So it's a very unique message in the entire Lamentation 3. Next, it's a historical context. What is the history here? The fall of Jerusalem. It has already taken place in 586 BC. It's 500 years ago. Let me confirm. It should be 6th century prophet, so it should be 586, yeah. 500 is a 6th century Jeremiah was known as a 6th century prophet. So 586 BC, Jerusalem has been destroyed. Houses have been burned to ashes. Women were raped, children were killed, old people were killed, and young people who are energetic, they are taken all captive. Assyria had already, Samaria, sorry, why I'm saying Assyria, sorry. The northern kingdom of Israel is already fallen. The southern kingdom of Judah, he is fallen now. So Jerusalem has already fallen. They are in a difficult situation. Now let's read 2 Kings chapter 24, and this will give you a picture in verse 15. Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiakim, the powerful king Nebuchadnezzar, who is a Persian king. He is empowered by Yahweh to punish his own people because they have disobeyed. So Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiakim captive to Babylon, and his officials, king's mother, his wife and children, all of them are deported. They are removed from their country. And Jehoiakim's uncle, we see in verse 17, chapter 24, 17, Zedekiah is made the king. But later on, Zedekiah also rebelled. And so what is happening now? Zedekiah is, in chapter 25, verse 7, they killed the sons of Zedekiah before his own eyes. 25:7. Then they put out his eyes. So the last glimpse Zedekiah had in his eyes of seeing his 2 sons being killed before, and after that he is made blind. This is the situation. The entire Jerusalem was, kept under siege in chapter 25 verse 2. The city was kept under siege until the 11th. For 3 years, almost 2.5 years, they were cut down from all supplies. And they were starved. They were made to starve to death and surrender, some of them. So Jerusalem has already been destroyed. That's the historical context. But Jeremiah had already warned long time ago, that this is going to happen. But people had not heard. And so this is the historical context. Jeremiah chapter 7, as you turn with me again to Jeremiah chapter 7, you will see what is happening. Israel's religion is without reform. They have become men and women of God who are very religious, but they are self-centered religious. Their religion is all about finding safety and security for themselves. Make sure that you give the tithe on time. Make sure that you offer prayer. Make sure that you go to temple. But all for self. Is I, me, and myself was the first. And God spoke to them that you better reform your ways. In chapter 7, verse 3. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel says, reform your ways and your actions. So their first sin was that they have put themselves first. I, not Yahweh, not others, but I themselves. Their religion is reduced to self-centered practice of rituals for personal safety, personal security. The second problem was, because it's all about me, myself, and I, they don't care about others. They become insensitive. So their religion has become full of injustice. They would not take care of the aliens. In chapter 7, verse 6, you see, if you do not oppress the alien, the fatherless, or the widow, and do not shed in the innocent blood. So they are doing injustice. The third thing, what they are doing, immorality of all kinds. When God is not first in your life, you do all kinds of immorality. Verse 9, chapter 7, Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 9, if you read down. Will you steal, murder, commit adultery, perjury, burn incense? All kinds of things. Then number 4, indifference, chapter 7, verse 13. When your religion becomes a ritual of self-centered, self-benefiting practices, then this is what is going to happen. You see in verse 12 onwards, chapter 7, verse 12. Go now to the place in Shiloh where I first made a dwelling for my name, and see what I did to it, because of the wickedness of my people Israel. While you were doing all these things, declared the Lord, I spoke to you again and again. God was speaking to them through Jeremiah again and again, but you did not listen. They were indifferent to Yahweh. I called you, but you did not answer. They would not even answer. And then fourth, the major offense, the sin that they committed was idolatry. Read that in verse 17 onwards. Chapter 7, 17, Jeremiah. Do you not see what they are doing in towns of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, and the fathers light the fire, and the women knead the dough and make cakes of bread for the Queen of Heaven. They pour out drink offering to other gods to provoke me to anger. So they have not abandoned Yahweh, but they also embraced other gods and goddesses, and they practice all kinds of religions, idolatry. So it has become a religion adulterated with self-vested interest. And they have all kinds of problems. So this is the problem. Why the fall of Jerusalem? Now this is not something that they knew, they were hearing for the first time from Jeremiah. The fall of Jerusalem happened because they were stubborn. They were not listening. Can you read Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 4? Did they not know that? They were already told a long time ago. Don't we do sometimes as a Christians? We know that we should not be doing, but we still keep on doing it. We keep on repeating. We are so indifferent to God's word also. Can you read out loud Exodus 21 to 4?
And God spoke to all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself any carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, and that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth.
So Yahweh sought actually 100% loyalty, but they were compromising. They were not giving 100%. The second one, can you read Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 23 and 27? Someone else? Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 23 and 27.
Take heed to yourselves, lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which He made with you, and make for yourselves a carved image in the form of anything which the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God.
27.
And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where the Lord will drive you.
Yeah. And what is interesting, this is one thing that you will see in the scripture. They did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. This phrase is repeated how many times? It's almost 253 times. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. If you read, what does it mean by he did evil in the eyes? You read Deuteronomy 4:25, that will make sense to you. And the last reference you can read is Jeremiah 52:3. So someone can read Deuteronomy, the first reference, 4:25, what it means by he did evil eyes in the Lord, eyes of the evil. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And then Jeremiah 52:2-3. Loudly.
When you beget children and grandchildren and have grown old in the land, and act corruptly, and make a carved image in the form of anything, and do evil in the sight of the Lord your God.
Evil in the sight. What they did? They made a calf. They made an idol. But they were kept on doing. Centuries after century, generation after generation, until Jeremiah's time. Jeremiah 52, can you read that one? 2-3. And same phrase is used, evil in the eyes of the Lord.
He also did evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For because of the anger of the Lord, this happened in Jerusalem and Judah, till he finally cast them out from his presence.
Yes.
Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon.
So both Jehoiakim and Zedekiah, they were guilty of the evil. Idol worship, idolatry was forbidden as a part. So no wonder Jerusalem was handed over to Nebuchadnezzar and Jerusalem became a desolate city. So that is the situation, that is the historical context in which Jeremiah is lamenting. Jeremiah is crying, complaining, and setting his hope in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of difficulties, crying for justice. So, the first that I want to focus to you in Lamentation chapter 3, verse 66, the first portion is verse 1 to 18. It's talking about the suffering of the godly. Suffering of the godly. Jeremiah, as a man of God who was so forthright and spoke on behalf of God, warning his people, and yet he also became victim of the judgment of God and punishment of God. He says, the man, he's talking about, I am the man who has seen affliction by the rod of his wrath. He has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. You know, if you see this text up to verse 18, you will see how he has felt abandoned by the Lord himself. He's suffering. His all the ways are blocked. He has broken my teeth. He's basically saying, God has done all this to me. So even the godly suffer. Individualism has a place. You can say, well, there's nothing to do. This is my life. It's me who, every Israelite could have said, Jeremiah, shut up your mouth. This is our life. Jehoiachin could have said, shut up your mouth, Jeremiah. No. Zedekiah would have said same thing. This is my life, how I live. You worship God, you keep your prophecy with you. But they don't realize that every sin that you and I commit, it has a corporate impact. You are not independent. You are individual, but yet you are not independent. What you do impacts even the righteous people. It impacts. Sin is infectious. You read Deuteronomy 4:21. Can you read out loud, one of you? Sin is infectious. When you do something wrong, it doesn't remain with you. What does it say?
The Lord was angry with me because of you, and he selected.
The Lord was angry with me because of you. Who is this person? Moses. Moses is considered as the most humble man of God. But he was forbidden to enter the promised land. You know why? Because he lost his temper. His people were always complaining and forcing. So he was not supposed to use his rod and strike the rock to get the water for the people. But because people are provoking him, he became angry and he struck and got the water for everybody. So he says, because of you, you sin and your sin has infected me. And because of you now, the Lord is also angry with me. And because of you now, I'm also forbidden to go to enter to the promised land. Do you think we can live independent in our family, in our society? Why? How does it impact you? Now, if you do something wrong, how does it impact your brother or sister? How does it impact your parents? How does it impact your children? Now, how does it impact my family? This is my independent life. I do what I do. I am alone in my hotel. I commit adultery. What does it matter? How does it impact my children? How? How does it impact?
The behavior, the mood.
Yes. But how does it impact? If I do something wrong, do you think my children will have a good name? No. If you do something wrong, will your brother or sister will be impacted? Sometimes Hindus, they understand more. Some Hindus, they really understand. The girls, particularly, older sisters, are very careful because they know if they do something wrong, it will be very difficult for her younger sister to get married. If she runs away, her younger sister will not be able to find a good family. The entire family gets affected. If one member does something wrong, others get affected. If any of you here in the church do something wrong, the entire church get affected. It's just like a body. If I have somewhere pricked in my finger, it will also be felt by my mind and body. None of us are independent. We can't say I don't care. And I do need to care because it's not about me, it's about also others. Jeremiah suffered, as a godly man also suffered because of the sin of the people of God. Sin is infectious. Individual sin has a corporate impact. Always remember. What happened when Abraham was praying for Sodom and Gomorrah? What he was saying? Oh God, if you can find 10%. And then what was the number? The lowest number? 5. And after that, so what does it mean? There was no righteous person in the Sodom and Gomorrah? There were. But probably less than 5. But when Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, even those perhaps 4 righteous were not spared. So you don't die yourself because of your sin. You take along with yourself your family members and even those innocent and those who are trying to live faithful life. Even they are impacted. Sin may be forgiven, but the consequences are inevitable. It follows you. You can't run away. God forgives. You know, one young man came to me and said, "Uncle, I don't like what you preach. I hope you don't mind. You know, you were not emphasizing God is love. You were only emphasizing God is very harsh judge. He brings judgment on the wicked people and the righteous people also. Both suffers." I say, "You are very honest. Thank you for sharing that. But what will you prefer? Would you like God to be always loving God? And somebody, suppose, rapes your sister, and he is not punished. Yes, God is sovereign. He sends rain to the wicked also. He sends rain to the righteous people. But do you think His sovereignty, which forgives everybody, should go to such an extent that the wicked should take the rain for granted? Because anyway, I'm going to get the rain anyway. The wicked gets and the righteous also get. So since I'm getting the rain anyway, should we take God's love for granted for all his life? And will that order be a very righteous order to continue? Yeah, He's sovereign. He can forgive some people. He may also help you to escape from the judgment and punishment. But do you think that should be the norm of any order? Should not the wicked face the consequences? Yes, sin may be forgiven. Should there be no fear of what you do? Jeremiah 32:18 says, "You show love to thousands, but bring the punishment for the parents' sin into the loss of their children after them." You know, if I do something wrong, its implications will, even the bank will not leave you. Suppose if I take a loan and I don't return and die, they will not leave you, even your children. Children will have to pay. Because you are living in that house, they will have to pay consequences. So sin has consequences, and it cannot be taken so lightly. Suffering of godly, that's what Jeremiah is crying. God, what you have done. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old, and broken my bones, verse 4. He has seized me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. He has made me dwell in darkness like those long. He feels like abandoned completely in the darkness. He has made me dwell in darkness like those long days. He has walled me, and so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. If you read it, you feel really like an injustice done to Jeremiah, who has served you, God, as a weeping prophet, spoken the forthright, and you have now made him suffer with all these rebellion Israelites. You made him homeless and wanderer, and now he's like in darkness. We all want to remain faithful for the simple reason because we want to also expect God to remain faithful to us. But God may not be faithful even when you are faithful. It's very easy to say, He is faithful even when we are unfaithful. But it's very difficult to say He is unfaithful even when you are faithful. He may not show up. What wrong did Job did? What was mistake of Job? Yahweh allowed the Satan to kill all his family members, destroy all the properties, and made him suffer with all the sores on his skins and cry out. So, It's a God's prerogative. He's a sovereign Lord. So be careful when you say, great is thy faithfulness. It has much more deeper meaning. Jeremiah comes from the bottom, the pit of the darkness, and from there he has firm hope in the Lord. Even when he finds the Yahweh unfaithful in his life, he has blocked his ways, he has made him to suffer. He shuts out my prayer. Verse 8 he says, even when I call out, cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has barred my way with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked, like a bear lying in wait, like a lion hiding. He dragged me from the path and mangled me. He pierced my heart He took away my peace. He made me a laughing stock before the people. I have been deprived, verse 70, look at that. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. My splendor is gone, and all that I had hoped from the Lord, all that he had hoped from the Lord, that Lord, at least I am faithful, I am trying to proclaim your word faithfully. These people are not listening. Let them suffer. But even my hope is abandoned, gone. So, godly has a firm hope in the Lord. People of God have three possible responses to the adversity. These are the possible responses. Either you compromise or become yes minister. You know, when Nebuchadnezzar attacked, there were many who joined the Babylonian, like Zedekiah, Joachim's uncle. He said, sir, you just spare my life. I am ready to be your vassal king. Whatever you say, I will do yes. I'm ready to be yes minister. So there were many Jews who joined the Persian and they become one of them, Persian. They married each other, they gave their girls to them, they joined the culture, they started the Baal worship. They became part of it. Situation is different, so no, this is the time we should join BJP. It's not a time to join Congress. It's a time to just join. This is the time, Modi move. Let's everybody be together. It's about being one nation. We are all together. The second is rebel further and join the underground jailer. No, you form the United Liberation Front and fight against this Persian. We will, will fight to death. And actually many did. And many of them lost their life. And Persian were a mighty, mighty kingdom. They could not ever, they wanted to perhaps thought, yeah, God had said I will scatter you and I will put you in, in exile. But we can cut it short. We can overcome it. How? We will form a united liberation, AK-47, kill the Persian and kill all this Nebuchadnezzar, and we will form a nation, liberated nation of Israel. We have some people like that, right? That's the second possible response. The third possible is accept the punishment with grace and be a faithful witness with the firm hope in the Lord. That you understand that once God has, implemented, even if I cry out, it's not going to happen. What God wants to give, no one can take away. What God doesn't want to give, even if I cry out, it won't come. We must accept the punishment because that's what God had said. Jeremiah had said. And we did not listen. Our indifference has brought the punishment to us, and we better accept it with grace and be faithful. In spite of that, we can still make best of the circumstances and best of the situation. What are the possible ways? No. The first, three examples that I give. Prayer of Nehemiah. Nehemiah was another young man who was put into exile in Persia. But look at that. 1:5. He says, Lord God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love. He remembers God has punished us, but he will keep his covenant of love. And then when he says, I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's family, have committed against you We have acted very wickedly against, not trying to cut short of the punishment, but recognizing the sin and asking forgiveness, confession. And then he says, remember, uses the word remember, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. They are your servants and your people whom you redeemed by your great strength. Give your servant success today. God, I am part of your plan. I'll go through this punishment. But I also want to remind you, remember you told us that you will, if we are faithful, if we once again correct ourselves, you will bring them back. And in that whole bringing back, I want to be part of it, Lord. I want to be part of your plan. I don't want to have another plan, but I want to be part of your plan. Give your servant a success today. This is the third possible response. And 3 examples. First one is this. Second was, remember the bold faith of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego? In Daniel chapter 3:17, they are all contemporary, same time, Persian. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. I know God can deliver us. And He will deliver us from our Majesty's hand. But even if He does not, we want you to know, Your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods. We have already done the mistake of serving other gods. And now we are facing the punishment. We don't want to continue the same mistake. This time I'm not going to serve your gods. I'm sorry. So accepting the punishment and within the punishment, trying to be a witness, correcting, confessing and correcting and amending. Now they are reforming their ways. Jeremiah told them to reform, but now they are reforming. He said, we will not serve you gods or worship the image of God. Third, Habakkuk was another minor prophet, but this is much later. But Habakkuk had much to say the similar way. Habakkuk 3:17-19. He says, though the fig tree does not bud and there gets no vines, though the olive crop fails, the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen, no cattle in the stall, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God, my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of the deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. Bold and firm faith, even in the times when God is apparently unfaithful. Great is my faithfulness. Of course, great is thy faithfulness, but that's already everybody knows. But the question is whether your faithfulness is going to be great or not when he is unfaithful. That's the real question. That's the real question. The context of Lamentation 3, godly to remain good and humble. In spite of all that, they have to remain good and humble. Read 25. Verse 25, Lamentation 3:25. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in Him, to the one who seeks Him. What kind of people Yahweh is seeking? Good one. He has not changed the criteria. It was same yesterday, today. He is still seeking the one. So whether you are in captivity or whether you are in complete desolate, in the darkness, at the bottom of the pit, God's standard of choosing is still the same. He is still seeking the good one. Will you be the good one, even when it is difficult to be good? And then, because Yahweh will show love and compassion. I must not miss this one. He says, verse 27, it is good for a man to bear the yoke. Still looking for somebody who is willing to bear the yoke. Let him sit alone in silence, verse 28. For the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. He says, like an ostrich, I will hid my head in the dust so that my lips may not start complaining and whining. The best thing is to put your head under the dust. Why? Because I want to allow the patience to win me, not my impatience win me. Because I want to trust Him. The suffering period may be longer, but I will not whine, I will not complain. And verse 30, let him offer his cheek to the one who strike when they will provoke me for violence, for anger. When they will slap me on this, I will be offered the other one. Remember what Jesus said? When somebody slaps on the one, what you should do? The other one. Much before Jesus, God had already said to us through Jeremiah in Lamentation, offer the other cheek when the times of adversity comes. Don't take revenge. Because Yahweh will show love and compassion, because Yahweh will not bring afflictions to the children of men. That's the promise. If you read down, you will see the same thing, verse 32. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is unfailing love, for he does not willingly bring affliction. Remember, Yahweh is not a cruel God. You and I suffer because we bring suffering to ourselves. We invite them to ourselves. He's not wanting you to be suffering and afflicted. But most of the time we are. And Jeremiah understood this. That if something is happening to me, if God has blocked my way, God has put me into dungeon and darkness, it's not because of Yahweh. Because His people. Just like Moses said, because of you, I am now facing the anger of the Lord. Jeremiah knew that he was facing the anger of the Lord because of his fellow brothers and sisters. It was not Yahweh. He will never bring afflictions to his children. Because sin has corporate impact. So, how is our hope in the times of adversity? That's the question. Because life is going to be not always a mountaintop experience. Life is going to be a time when you will be depressed. You will go through the valley of shadow of death. You will lose a peace of mind. Your heart will ponder and wonder what it is worth. When our Jerusalem of comfort, of safety, well-being, or even good reputation shall be destroyed, what shall we say? What shall we say? Great is thy faithfulness, or great is my faithfulness? What shall we say? Great is my faithfulness. Even you are apparently seems to be unfaithful. Because our hope in you is firm and bold and unshaken. Not depending on my experience, but depending on who you are. Shall we bow our head and remain in silence for